Yo. Ooh, what's happening here? Respawn Electronic Arts. We're going hard. We're going hard. Open up Apex Pack.
You and me? Let's
You're
take
good.
this win.
I'm good. If we lose, it's the other donut's fault. All the magic that I've known, I've had to make myself.
Introducing your champion. Take care when you approach me. I'm in a class of my own.
Not bad.
Scrappy Jump Master. Okay.
This ain't too bad of a spot. And if we die, blame our mate over there. Here we go, mates. Let's get messy.
Got some materials here.
Wow, that's nice of you.
Round one. Beginning ring countdown.
Next ring's far. No lagging.
Rings closing in one. I'm chasing down a lead.
Gathering materials. The ring's still far, and we have 45 seconds to change that. Flatline here.
Might be something good this way.
Pierced by the earth.
Warning. Ring closing.
Ring's moving and we're all outside. Let's not die this way. Cool? My ultimate is ready.
delivered.
Got a care package coming in.
Let's head that way.
Recharging my shields. Extended sniper mag here. Level 3. Listen up, we're spread out a bit. Watch your maps.
I like this spot's energy. Let's go. The dark pierces through. They're focusing on me. Broken enemy shield. Reloading. My shields need a bit more power. Forming a battle.
Got another squad. Arm up. Just giving my shields a recharge.
Pierce their hearts. And their feet. Arc star out. Firing. Another squad is on us. Strong enough to pierce. Enemy shield broken. No better. Firing. I'll give them a piercing or I'm down. I need help.
Enemy down. Reloading.
Another squad out.
Listen up, I'm getting shot. Air drone if you need it. I've been down.
My ultimate's ready.
This one's free. Remember that.
New kill leader appointed.
Scrappy DP says,
New kill
GW.
leader. Better use a rampart for them shots.
Shield cell here. The next ring's far off.
Ha! We've got a new kill leader. I love this place.
Delivering replicator.
Replicator dropping like it's hot.
You can't run up that.
Evo shield here. Level 3. Go over here.
They're not gonna get me out of there.
None of us are in the ring. We need to
All
set
right,
ourselves
mates.
there and
Let's
fast.
regroup there.
Well then, we have a care package on the way. Well, you made some magic.
Slide. Run and slide. There you go.
New kill leader. If they used a rampart for them shots.
Find a hill, slide down left. Slide. Yes. Stay sliding. Stay sliding. Oh, they're good.
Investigator dropping in.
I need heavy ammo.
You could pick me up right there with that banner, you know, right to your right. Right to your right, behind you. Oh my god, what is wrong with you guys?
Shield battery here.
Why don't you pick me up right there? You're running away from... Oh my god, dude. Is this for real right now? So you can get done up? Spray side to side? Go get me up, bro. Right, there's a spot to get me up right there.
Champions out. How the mighty have fallen.
Why would you not pick my banner up, bro?
Could use backup.
Coming down from the stars.
Yeah. Yeah, you just passed me. You can pick me up. You're right there to your left. Pick me up on the green thing. What's wrong with you?
Time to show them what we're made of. It's just blood and guts, really.
This is gonna be a good fight.
This is your champion.
This might be a good place to land. Here we go! Hang tight!
Huh.
Enemy landed close by. Another squad coming.
That was the worst drop ever. Who chose to do that? God, waste someone else's time, you little chumps. Chump sickles. You're a chump sickle.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
But the question is, like, why would we assume that it's a biological entity? It doesn't have any windows. It's this round thing that looks like a Tic Tac. If there is some sort of advanced propulsion system, some revolutionary way of moving through space and time that the U.S. government has developed, you know, in some Black Ops program, that seems very likely impossible. That seems more likely than aliens visiting us. But there's more than one incident. And there's a lot of these things. And the possibility of alien life in the universe, although we've never experienced it, seems rational. It seems very rational. And if you were going to study an emerging civilization that is both primitive and warlike and yet insanely technologically advanced, to the point where they have nuclear weapons, they can transmit video through the sky, they have propaganda, they have tracking of their citizens, like, that's us. That's us right now. And while we are these territorial, primal beings with fucking nuclear weapons, this would be a good time to start exposing yourself.
Yes.
And and look, the reason why we named the rooms of our club is because in UFO lore, that's when they started showing up. After the detonation of the atomic bombs in Japan, that's when the UFO sightings ramped up.
And they ramped up mostly in the U.S., right?
Yes.
So that's interesting because the U.S. was the nuclear power. So.
And we were the one who was doing a lot of fucking testing.
Yeah.
You know, and also we have all these military bases. Who the fuck has more military bases than us? Who has more nuclear weapons pointed at other people than us? We have them all over the place. And there's all these multiple sightings and eyewitness accounts of like very credible people who say these things have hovered over military bases.
It'd be pretty cool if these aliens were benevolent overlords. And they were like, hey, my children.
Yeah. Or maybe even so advanced intellectually that the concept of an overlord is preposterous. And they're just biological management. There's just the gardeners tending to make sure the weeds don't get out of hand and just like let this process continue to play itself out. Because this process of technological innovation it's the everything that humans do.
Yeah.
It's what we do at the pinnacle of our creation is we make better technology.
Well, I always wonder about fractals and whether or not, like, this idea of this being a simulation, this being, you know, like we are kind of replicating, we are creating machines and doing our best to create them in our own image, right?
Yes.
And that's interesting. You know, that's because the mythologies that we subscribe to are the idea that this God that we pray to made us in his image. And we're doing the same thing now with robots and computers. And that's an interesting thing that we seem to have this sort of paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that that's the scaffolding for the way we think, right? And to what end? And why are we doing that?
Maybe it's the creation.
Has it already happened? But has it already happened? Are we the result of that impulse that happened a long time ago?
I think we are the shit-throwing chimps that are going to become the nuclear physicists.
That's what
we are the shit-throwing chimps from 2001 that become Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think this thing that we become is integrated with technology. It's probably some sort of a hybrid. It's some sort of a cyborg.
That's wild.
Because I think we're already like on the verge of merging. You know, all this talk of like Neuralink and all these various things. We watched this video the other day of this guy who was Googling questions and getting answers in his head with his headpiece on. Have you seen that thing? Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Incredible. Right? So how long before that is like that's Pong?
I know. But that's
and then you have the Unreal 4 engine in 2023 that looks like a movie.
No.
Like how long before that technology gets to the point where it's just supremely advanced and we literally are like God?
But my question really is also the idea that that's engineering, right? That's a tool.
It's innovation.
But there's engineering. So there are two aspects to it. One is getting information faster and stuff, which doesn't get you closer to truth, but it gets you information faster. There are endless facts. But more importantly, I always wonder, like, why we are given this. I really believe that human potential is pretty much infinite. Whatever you can imagine and beyond, we can do. And we are doing. We seem to be doing this. Like, think about how crazy that is. I can wear a headset and I can do things with my mind and look up the answer.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's magic. It's crazier than magic. But there's a way to measure that and quantify that and replicate that. So it's not magic. I can do it, and I can tell you exactly how I get there, which is even crazier. So, what is that? What is that leading us to? It is nudging us closer. It's like I think it's very significant that we're getting a better understanding of what it's like to be someone else. Yeah. We are. It's really hard to say that a Yanomamo Indian or whoever it might be thinks about things differently than I do when I know so much about how all these human beings, like someone in Iran, someone in Jordan, laughs and cries and bleeds at the same thing I do. You know, it's being prejudiced based on what that person looks like over there is becoming harder and harder to justify. Where it was before we knew about that, we were like, well, those people over there are quote unquote savages, or they're this, that, and the other thing. And I do think that we are getting a better understanding of what it's like to be each other and being nudged in the same direction. I'm not saying we don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
No, I think that's true too.
But why? And it's interesting to think about where that's leading us to what understanding, and then when we have that understanding, what are we going to do about that?
Right, and are we going to pull it together? And are the aliens here to make sure that we don't fuck it up?
Yeah.
That's the beautiful idea. The terrible idea is that it's all us. And then it's all a big ruse, and it's all just drones that we're doing because we don't want China and Russia to know about it. But we have insane propulsion systems that operate on gravity, and
yeah, I think it is.
But it seems like both. It seems like us, and it also seems like there's some shit that we just don't understand. And I don't know if those people are telling the truth. Because if the people that are telling the truth that there's biological entities, and this is what Jackie Gleason said that Nixon told him, and Nixon took him on. They were drinking. You know that famous story?
No.
Who knows if it's true? It's a legend. But the legend is that Jackie Gleason and Nixon were drinking. And that Nixon said, "You want to see some fucking aliens?" And they get on Air Force One, and they fly to some Air Force base, and they go to a place where they have a crashed UFO, and they have biological beings that are in freezers. And Jackie Gleason sees this. And Jackie Gleason, after that, has a house built in upstate New York that looks like a UFO. He became obsessed with UFOs after that. There was a house, it was actually for sale at one point in time. Yeah, so he has this house that he had shaped like a UFO. And this is like, who knows if this is a true story? Yeah. Right? Because it's like, it was kind of sort of disputed. His ex-wife told the story or something like that. I forget.
I think that kind of thing is actually impossible to keep secret.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
You think generational, generations of government bureaucrats can keep something a secret?
Sure, they tell the people at the very highest level know about it. It's very few people. It's all very compartmentalized. They monitor everyone's phone calls, everyone's emails, everything everyone does. At a top secret clearance level?
No way.
I don't think you're right.
Totally impossible.
You're definitely not right.
I think it's impossible.
Listen, man, they can keep secrets.
When?
People at high levels of military can keep secrets.
Yeah, but they're always rotating out. They're retiring, they're dying.
Yeah, they probably wind up fucking Hillary Clinton and a lot of these dudes.
Hey, listen, dude, this is not conspiracy social club. This is the Joe Rogan experience.
I'm not willing to relinquish the idea that they could keep that secret.
Well, that's because it's fun to believe in.
Yeah, but it's not just fun to believe in. It is possible. It's a physically possible thing to do. Especially if you have the right people and they're indoctrinated in the right way with top secret clearance. And by the way, it's not like these people don't tell their friends. And it's not like there's a bunch of stories floating around, because there are. There's a shitload of stories
floating around. That's what I'm saying. But why would you, I would never keep that a secret. I'd be like, hey, you got fucking aliens.
Here's the thing. When you have senators and congressmen who find out about this, and they find out that military contractors are the ones who have access to this stuff, because the back engineering program has to involve someone who has the capability of recreating this. So who would that be? That would be the people that make jets. If you got someone who's making you a fucking a stealth bomber, and you have a crashed UFO, those are the people that you want discussing like what kind of things you've recovered from a fucking alien crash, and can this be replicated?
Now, here's the problem with your
don't you know me, motherfucker, because you don't know. You might be wrong.
You're wrong. No,
don't say you're wrong, because you don't know.
This is the problem with your theory. Ready?
Okay.
I'm sorry, and I love that you want to believe in this, and so do I, but here's the problem.
Okay.
There's no law. There's no written law that says I'm not allowed to talk about aliens. And I mean at the top levels of clearance, like the most secret level. There is no world where if I'm a government official and I take a bunch of pictures and I come before Congress and I go, here's my evidence, I'm blowing the whistle, there are real aliens.
You don't think they would go after you for
I'd never go to jail.
Violating your top secret clearance?
No, because it's not violating my top secret clearance.
But it would be.
Nope, because I'd never go to jail for that. Because I'd be like, you're going to put me in jail for exposing what everybody wants to know? The whole world would be like, holy shit. You guys kept this
a secret? That's assuming that you have access to that material to extract
there are enough people who
wherever the people. Maybe not. Maybe those are the kind of people that wouldn't do that, Brian.
Listen,
you fucking cunts. I don't like the way you think.
I'm shredding your UFO.
No, you're not. You think you are, but you're just using these establishments.
You're allowed to talk about UFOs and never get in trouble.
Sound like your dad.
Come on, man.
You're a CIA stooge. You're a CIA stooge
right now,
and you're in here spreading propaganda to the faithful listeners.
Listen to me. Listen to me. There are no aliens. There are. We know about it because
if there is, you're going to come back on and dress like a clown. Agreed?
Agreed.
That's my bet I'm making with everybody now.
I'll dress up like a clown. I'll do it.
to your pet's collar, which is significantly safer than pet tags that dangle. Each bite tag has a unique QR code on it, and when you scan it, it pulls up a profile for your pet, which has I use this.
Science didn't sleep, and neither do we, right, Newt?
All the magic that I've known, I've had to make myself.
We've got a job to do, so shift your carcass.
This is your champion. Get ready for a light show.
I'm the jump master. No straying, no.
I am the jump master.
Maybe this
Let's
time I'll
descend
open
from the
both
cosmos.
eyes.
We do this for science.
Hello, you absolute legends. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. Nothing better describes the art of freestyle in the esport Rocket League. The standard aim of Rocket League is simple. Put the ball into the opposing goal more times than your opponent. If your score is higher, you win. The indie developer Psyonix's 2015 release became a surprise sensation and has developed into one of the biggest esports in the world. What makes Rocket League so appealing, so popular, and so fun is the incredibly responsive controls and depth of mechanics. Still to this day, players are developing and perfecting new techniques, new plays, and new ways to get the upper hand. The skill ceiling is extremely high, and the way the professionals fly around the arena with such precision and grace is astounding. When a game like Rocket League has such great mechanics, it lends itself to offshoots being spawned. The internet is abound with custom courses and maps that are not only used to practice core mechanics, but also to speedrun as well. The movement in Rocket League is so interesting that it has created entire subgenres of competition, which aren't just about how many goals you can score. And the biggest offshoot is freestyle. Freestyling in Rocket League is a rather broad subject, but the crux of it is all about scoring goals in the most interesting, entertaining, and difficult ways. It's an art form, it's a display of skill, and it's a celebration of the thousands of hours a player has put into honing their abilities. Over the past several years, freestyle has gained in popularity, with Psyonix themselves hosting massive tournaments with grand prizes of up to $50,000. And over the past year, there was one particular player that started getting a lot of attention, a freestyler who went by the name Shimmy. Shimmy was always a pretty decent freestyler. In 2020, his clips were even featured on the channel Rocket League FX. In 2021, he started posting montages to his own YouTube channel that were good, but nothing too crazy. Then, in late 2021, Shimmy became insane. Not only executing shots that were world-class, but even pioneering techniques and tricks that no one had ever seen at this level. Shimmy had become a god. He had sold his soul to the devil in exchange for inhumane freestyling abilities. But alas, it was all a lie. Shimmy had been faking his freestyle tricks in a way never seen before. Not only was he prolific, but he was cunning and creative in his deception. In this video, we are going to take a look at how Shimmy fooled the Rocket League freestyle community for almost an entire year, and how he was ultimately caught. I really hope you enjoy. Now legends, this video is sponsored by the military online game War Thunder, and when it comes to vehicle combat games, War Thunder is the most comprehensive ever made. We are talking over 2,000 unique tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships battling out in intense PvP battle. All of the vehicles are extremely detailed, with each individual component handcrafted to make it as real and immersive as possible. The vehicles in War Thunder span over 100 years of development, so if you're into history you can have fun and learn at the same time. War Thunder offers insane graphics at 4K resolution, and the sound effects seem very realistic. Personally, I love how intense combat is. Flying through the sky with countless anti-aircraft shells whizzing past, trying to outmaneuver enemy planes is pretty epic. And what's even more epic is that War Thunder is free to play, and is available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. And if you use my link in the description, there is a large free bonus pack waiting for you, which includes multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, boosters, and much more. When it comes to live competition like we see in Rocket League tournaments or online play, it's very hard to cheat in real time. In fact, it's basically unheard of. You can't hack the game to get an advantage over someone else when you play, or at least a way hasn't been figured out yet. However, when it comes to editing clips after the fact, or recording something in secret, that's a completely different story. This definitely lends itself to foul play, and it had been seen before. A good example is the player DLG, who in 2020 claimed a new world record for the amount of chained flip resets. A flip reset is where you turn your car upside down and let the ball hit all four wheels at the same time. This resets your jump flag, which lets you jump again without needing to land on the ground. DLG claimed 14 flip resets in a row, but there was something strange about his video. On the bottom right is the boost meter, and the word boost is constantly flashing. It always flashes at the same speed for everyone, but in DLG's video, it was flashing way faster. Ultimately, it was discovered this was because DLG used a mod to play in slow motion, obviously making it easier. The timer and the physics were slowed down to half speed, but the speed at which the boost was flashing remained the same. Then, when DLG sped up the footage using a video editor, everything looked normal except for the flashing boost, which now flashed at twice the normal speed. In 2021, Shimmy was already considered a pretty decent freestyle clip hitter. Nothing crazy, nothing world class, but a pretty good mid-tier player. At least according to the montages he would post on his YouTube channel, which he would upload every few months. But then, in December of 2021, Shimmy became possessed, and took things to the next level in a montage he uploaded called Find My Way. Shimmy's shots were no longer just pretty good, they were top tier, and he started to introduce a tricky maneuver called reverse cam. This is where he would put the car into reverse and turn the camera so he couldn't even see the ball when he made the shot. Now at first glance, this just seems impossible, but experienced Rocket League players are exceptionally good at reading where the ball's trajectory is heading. So this kind of thing isn't completely out of the question. Shimmy's clips were so good that he was even invited onto the freestyle team, Redshift, and as 2022 progressed, he released more montages, each one getting progressively more insane. Shimmy's shots were amazing, and the camera work was stunning. He would seamlessly switch between ball cam and reverse cam to produce beautiful looking goals. And not only was his camera work great and his precision immaculate, but the ball speed he could generate was epic. And in freestyle, a more powerful shot is something everyone strives for. The footage was so good that some YouTube commenters started claiming it was fake. Make no mistake though, YouTube comments mean nothing. Speedrunners get these kinds of comments every day. But Shimmy's montage in August of 2022 was so good that it even raised the eyebrows of a fellow teammate named Taku. Taku was also an incredible freestyler in their own right, who had even competed in live freestyle tournaments. Taku isn't just some random YouTube commenter, they are legit, and they noticed something interesting about a shot in Shimmy's latest montage. So they reached out to Shimmy and asked for the replay file so they could get a good look at it. Shimmy initially delayed, which is not a big deal in of itself. It does happen. Maybe he really was cooking up a 4-course cuisine, and it really did take 1.5 hours to make food. But eventually, he sent the replay, and it crashed Taku's game. They couldn't watch it or even open it. Shimmy couldn't explain it. It was working fine when he made his montage, but now it's just not working. At this point, Taku's ears perked up, and they became genuinely suspicious. So what had Taku seen in this clip that made them want to see the replay? Well, the problem is that for several frames before the goal is scored, you could see the wide open net, but the ball was nowhere to be found. Shimmy was using a lot of blur in post-production, but still, you can clearly see that there is no ball entering the net. And when Shimmy couldn't even provide a functioning replay, this was a huge red flag. So Taku began digging, and they also reached out to the leader of their team, Nitro Drift. And after a 2-week investigation, what they uncovered was astonishing. Shimmy had been faking almost everything. He had been directly altering the code of replays to show things that simply never happened. Taku and Nitro Drift created an entire Discord server outlining their findings, and there were a lot of smoking guns. Even without delving into the hidden values of the game, just visually, things weren't right. For example, when you score, if you're close enough to the net, you get pushed back by the explosion. The direction you get pushed back is based on your car's placement relative to where the ball hits the goal. It's pretty straightforward. But in many Shimmy clips, he would get knocked back in weird directions that didn't make sense. This is because the replays in Rocket League save positions, and they don't recreate physics. And what Shimmy was doing is altering the ball's position to increase its speed and change its trajectory, so it went faster and placed higher into the net. Basically, he just made it look better than it did in real life. But then, he didn't alter the car's position during the knockback, so it wasn't consistent with the goal. What's funny though, is that when confronted about this, Shimmy tried to cover it up. When asked for a particular replay due to the weird knockback, what he sent was very strange. In the replay Shimmy provided, the car seemed to change direction during the knockback, which just doesn't happen. However, Shimmy was in a difficult position, because he had already shown the clip in his montage, which contained some of the knockback. So if he altered what was already shown, it would give the game away. So he kept that portion the same, but the knockback after the footage ended, he altered to change its direction. It makes no logical sense, but Shimmy was scrambling to find a solution to this insurmountable problem. One thing that's great about using fancy camera work and not looking at the ball is that you can do whatever you like with the ball and no one would know, unless of course they had the replay. In this clip, Shimmy performs an amazing double tap off the back wall, and you don't really see where the ball goes. In fact, in the frame or two before the explosion happens, you do see the net where the ball should be, but again, the ball is nowhere to be seen. Once again, Shimmy was asked for the replay, which, after a small delay, he provided. But unbeknownst to Shimmy, this was a ruse. For you see, through a mutual friend whom Shimmy had given the replay to months ago, they had already acquired their own copy. This was just a test to see if he would scramble to make it more believable now that they were asking him directly for the replay. In the secretly acquired replay, using a third-person perspective, the ball trajectory was very strange. It sped up, slowed down, and sped up again, and randomly zipped away from the goal before the explosion occurred. I guess Shimmy didn't want you to see where the ball really was, so he just made it zip out of sight and didn't think anyone would notice because it all happened so quickly. But in the newly acquired replay that Shimmy did provide after being asked, the ball trajectory now looked much more realistic. And now, you could actually see the ball before the goal is scored. It was where it was supposed to be. Shimmy had once again scrambled to make the replay more believable before sending it. There were many more visual inconsistencies, but at the end of the day, that's all they were. And while they are definitely proof enough to convict Shimmy of altering replays, the killing blow came with accessing the game's hidden values. For this, Taku and Nitro enlisted the help of the modder Martin N, who built a tool that could show the ball's speed. Normally when a ball is struck, it will slow down in the air due to friction, and this is how the ball normally behaves in Shimmy's replays. However, when he would make the final shot at goal, the speed of the ball would peak and remain constant until hitting the net. This is literally impossible, and isn't how the game works at all. This was hard proof that Shimmy was altering the data and inputting the ball speed each frame to make it go faster than it otherwise would. After their investigation, Taku and Nitro released all of their findings on August 28, 2022, and removed Shimmy from the Redshift team. And one day later, Shimmy confessed. Ultimately, Shimmy had been cheating in a way never seen before. Shimmy was a programmer who was able to get inside the game's code and change specific values. Essentially, he could make whatever he wanted to happen. And if he took more time and care with his work, there might not have been any way to detect what he had done. Shimmy even faked the fact that he was playing against real people. In many clips, he would play against himself and then edit the code to make it look like he was versing people online. People try to fake freestyle clips all the time, but Shimmy is the first case where someone was able to really fool the community for a really long time. It's situations like this that birth better detection methods, and now players have a much better idea about what to look for when they spot something that isn't quite right. What's funny is that while this situation is novel and new to Rocket League, it's been happening in speedrunning for decades. The unfortunate truth is that if someone is allowed to make attempts out of sight and then simply produce the video footage or replay later, someone is going to try to fake it. It's only a small minority of people, but it's still almost a certainty. And it's a lesson that the Rocket League freestyle community has learned the hard way. Now, a huge thanks to Taku and Nitro for not only uncovering Shimmy's deception, but also having a chat with me about the situation. Please go and support them both by subscribing to their YouTube channels and checking out some of their montages. Also, a big shout out to Rocket Sledge, who makes really interesting and informative Rocket League videos, so check him out as well. Also, once again, use the link in the description to download and play War Thunder. It's free, it's fun, and it's awesome. Plus, using my link will get you a bunch of free bonus goodies, so definitely click the link and check it out. As always, thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.
Northern India, 6th century BCE. The wild man Angulimala tears through the jungle panting, a necklace of human fingers dangling from his neck. He's killed 999 people, ambushing them on the road and dragging them from houses, taking a finger from each. And he just sighted his 1000th victim, an old monk. Yet no matter how hard he runs, he can't catch him.
How are you so fast, old man?
He shrieks.
I want your fingers. Stop. I must have your fingers.
I have stopped, the monk replies, and as impossible as it may seem, it's true. The monk stands immobile, yet as Angulimala runs, the land stretches between them. I've stopped the cycle of death and rebirth. Now you, Angulimala, why don't you stop? Humbled by this display of power and wisdom, Angulimala drops to his knees, presses his blood-stained hands together, and begs Buddha to take him as a student. Thanks so much to HelloFresh for continuing to help us bring history to the table. Now you may have noticed in the first episode of this series, when we talked about how Buddha attained his awakening and discovered the Four Noble Truths, we included a few more gods and demons than in, say, our John Brown series. Well, that was a deliberate choice. See, we don't have many historical sources for Buddha's life, and actually, Buddhism isn't that interested in the historical Buddha. What's important to them is the meanings of these stories, rather than strict factuality. As a result, historians look at early Buddhism through the lens of oral history, analyzing these stories to extrapolate what the early Buddhist community looked like. Who joined? Why did they do so? And what made Buddhism attractive? Because it seemed to be very attractive. Within 45 years, Buddha would go from 10 close followers to a faith community of thousands. So why? I mean, that's the question that's at the heart of every academic history of a religious movement, right? Why did the Buddhist message appeal to people, spread, and endure when thousands of competing ideas died out? Buddhism, after all, did not arise in a land devoid of religious tradition. On the contrary, it was rich with them. Brahmanism, a historical religion that was a precursor to Hinduism, dominated the cradle of Buddhism. Not to mention that concepts such as reincarnation, the cycle of death and rebirth, and fulfilling your dharma, or righteously living out your societal role in castes, whether it be a soldier or laborer, etc., were already well established. And much of Buddhism would be an attempt to critique, evolve, or react against these concepts. Well, Brahmanism was weakening because it wasn't that spiritually fulfilling. A fact we suspect due to a large number of splinter groups arising at the time, from Buddhism to Jainism to ancient Hinduism and others that died out, most of which that appear to address an anxiety over reincarnation. But you might be thinking at this point, wait, why would people want to exit the cycle of death and rebirth? Living infinite life sounds pretty great. Okay, but on the other hand, does it though? Think of it this way. Would you want to experience all of the highs and lows of life all over again forever? Sounds kind of exhausting to me. And also, it's important to remember that this was a time before modern medicine, where childbirth, aging, and sickness were extremely painful and dangerous. In fact, it was more normal to be sick than it was to be well. The mortality rate was high for children and women, and political instability spurred regular warfare. Oh, and then there's hell. Wait, did we not mention hell before? Because between each rebirth, you would be pitched into the realm of Yama, god of the underworld, and hellaciously tortured to burn off bad karma. Sidebar. This guy is Yama. Yeah, he's kind of a boss. So, with all of that said, you sure you still want to keep riding this cosmic Ferris wheel forever? But even outside wanting to become a monk and attain nirvana in this life, Buddhism still held appeal for the lay people as well. They were encouraged to meditate, to moderate their behavior, live by ethical codes, and maintain love for their family and community. Monks also worked in said communities as counselors, spiritual advisors, and teachers. In other words, Buddhist practice held immediate benefits in improving relationships and fostering an outlook ideal for coping with an ever-changing and sometimes chaotic world. After all, if everything isn't permanent, negative things and troubles will also pass. And the religions that last are the ones that do these things, that use ritual, moral, and theological codes to benefit the individual practitioners as well as their communities. And that community aspect was strong in Buddhism, since monks also worked as counselors, spiritual advisors, and teachers in their communities. This was by design, by the way. Buddha wanted to specifically tie the monks and lay people together. In fact, Buddhism is a religion dependent on urbanization, because you see, monks had many prohibitions. They couldn't harm sentient creatures, eat meat, or sleep in a soft bed, but most crucially, they couldn't handle money. Meaning without cities and towns, monks simply couldn't operate. Each morning, monks would go into the community with begging bowls. Then the community would donate food to them as a way to support their religious mission. And when the monk's bowl was filled, he would return and eat it all as his only meal. And this act engaged the lay people in the upkeep of their religious community. Of course, some gave more, such as wealthy converts donating pieces of property for monks to use, thereby founding the first monasteries. Now, these donations helped worshippers build karmic merit, but they also mirrored Buddha's renunciation of worldly things and trappings. But then, for people who wanted to gain enlightenment as soon as possible, that very renunciation could also mean renouncing life and becoming a monk. And doing so, while difficult, could have great rewards, especially for people who needed a total change, like the finger-collecting serial killer that we talked about in the beginning of this episode. Buddha's conversion of Angulimala demonstrates Buddhism's promise of redemption. Not only did Angulimala reform, the stories claim that that reformation was so total that he became spiritually reborn, attained nirvana, and worked miracles. In fact, Buddha himself declared that Angulimala, upon his death, had exited the cycle. It's a story that emphasized that not only can anyone redeem themselves in Buddhist belief, but that the eternally changing nature of the world offers hope. For if all is passing, then even someone in a state of what might be called evil can become good. Interestingly though, the story is a bit more complicated. One morning, when Angulimala went out to beg for food, several of his victim's family members broke his bowl and beat him. Then when he asked the Buddha why this was allowed, even though he was spiritually reformed, Buddha informed him that even though he'd repented, the harm of his violence could not be undone, nor the karmic consequences. That's a surprisingly modern idea of reconciliation. In Angulimala, we also see a man seeking out Buddhism as a way to atone for violence, and perhaps some other early adherents were doing the same. Because as we'll see later, when we discuss Chinese Buddhism and Kung Fu, this religion will come to hold a special appeal for former soldiers. Others were likely attracted to Buddhism's egalitarianism. For instance, among Buddha's inner circle was Umpali, a poor barber who Buddha ordained as a monk alongside princes, showing the movement's rejection of the caste system. Buddha also permitted an order of nuns, though in truth only after his aunt hounded him to do so for 5 years. However, he insisted that nuns follow even more rules and would rank lower than the lowliest monk. Women, he believed, belonged with families and were too emotional to excel in monastic life. Despite this somewhat insulting inclusion, Buddhist nuns would go on to use even this restrictive role to exercise power and influence. For 45 years, Buddha lectured and built his community, and by the time he was old and suffering from back pain, he had thousands of followers, divvied into 6 schools. Supposedly, his cousin had even briefly founded a breakaway crew. But then, one fateful day, he ate a meal donated to him, got sick, and died in meditation, passing into parinirvana. Which is a pretty low-key way to go by the standard of religious founders' deaths, if you think about it. Usually they're executed for their beliefs, or they ascend directly to heaven or something. He left instructions for his body to be cremated, with his mortal remains built into a mound known as a stupa. But while his wishes were clear, his sudden absence presented a problem. During his life, the Buddha had spread his message orally, which was fine when he was available to settle disputes or clarify his ideas. But with him now gone, the community realized they needed to commit his message onto paper, lest it be lost in a game of telephone. It said that they called for a conference of all 6 schools. There, Buddha's personal attendant Ananda, who had a flawless memory, told episodes of the Buddha's life and recalled his teachings. Meanwhile, the former barber Ubali, who had memorized all of the rules of monastic life, recited them so they could be recorded. And these formed the first written doctrines of the Buddhist spiritual movement. Also, this was only, at least by tradition, the first of these conferences. A second would come about a century after Buddha's death. Though, by that time, Buddhism had split into 18 different schools, including one, Theravada, which still exists today. Yet an even greater split was coming, one that would help Buddhism spread across Asia, and its key figure would not be a monk, but a king, Ashoka the Great. And speaking of great, HelloFresh. Alright, I know it wasn't my best transition ever, but it's super true and I stand by the greatness. As I've mentioned many times in the past, HelloFresh is my favorite meal kit delivery service that frees up a ton of my time by saving me from stressful meal planning and expensive trips to the grocery store. A place I do not like. Instead, I get all of the fresh ingredients I need to prepare an awesome home-cooked meal delivered right aka an activity that I love that doesn't involve me looking at a screen for once, and then I'm eating in a half hour or less. Plus, with over 40 different recipes and more than 100 tasty add-on options available each week, you are sure to find something that pleases everyone. Say you want to go vegetarian, pescatarian, or fit and wholesome meals. Well, they got you covered on all of that. And actually, in these late days of summer, I was extremely excited to try their Mushu pork bowl with cabbage, scallions, and buttery rice, which was just so fast to cook and delicious as all get out, as you can see on my face. Whereas Jeff this time around was hyped to serve up their Parmesan chive and chicken potatoes for his family. Oh, and you know that Joey and I smelled that from over his fence and had to come over to get a taste. Wrong tagline, but right center. Oh, and another thing HelloFresh gets right is their continued work on the sustainability and freshness fronts. Their produce goes from farm to your front door in under a week. The ingredients are all pre-portioned, meaning less food waste, and HelloFresh's carbon footprint is 31% lower than meals made from supermarket ingredients, which we just love. So if you'd like to save money on meals and eat just really dang good while you do it, now is the best time to give HelloFresh a try for yourself with this delectable deal. All you gotta do is go to HelloFresh.com and use the code 50 extra credits. That's 50 extra credits for 50% off plus free shipping. And you didn't mishear me over your growling stomach. You can save a ton of money on delicious meals while supporting the content you love, the environment, and your grumbly tummy. Again, that is 50% off plus free shipping at HelloFresh.com when you use that code 50 extra credits. Your time and taste buds will thank you, and as always, so will we. Thanks so much, everyone. What if I told you that Ahmed Ziad Turk, Angela Valenciana, Arclight Games, Casey Music, Dominic Valenciana, Joseph Blame, Kuya Koi, and Skylar Holmes were all legendary patrons?
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Gotta hop up here. Havoc here.
Welcome back to Falls Tech News. As the summer blazes on with record-breaking temperatures and a widespread outbreak of chronic swamp ass, PC gamers and DIY builders alike find themselves adrift and rudderless in a sea of discontent and uncertainty. For after the summer cometh the fall, typically a season of harvest and plenty, Launch season, where we, the consumers, gather the fruits and reap the benefits of progress thanks to research and development efforts made by hardware manufacturers big and small over the course of the year. But in recent years, it seems those fruits have dwindled and shriveled up into vaguely suggestive dangling appendages that are both unsightly and grossly overpriced. So what, we wonder, will the remaining portion of this year bring? Will we get the balls or the shaft, to put it bluntly, and which one is even preferable in this complex and overwrought analogy? The answer, of course, is a reach around. Just get a nice firm hold on one of these, a nice cold beverage of your choice to beat the summer heat, and put off all those tough questions for another day. Besides, it's time for tech news. Cheers. Today's video is brought to you by the Corsair IQ Link System Hub, a single small controller that manages all of your system cooling and RGB lighting. The IQ Link System Hub mounts magnetically to your case and can control up to 14 devices, 7 per port, with daisy chain support so you can simplify your cable management while still enabling glorious synchronized RGB. Corsair's IQ software can automatically configure the IQ Link components while enabling precise fan speed control and real-time system monitoring. Click the sponsor link in the video description for more on the Corsair IQ Link System Hub. For months, if not years, my fellow tech reviewers and I have been hammering one point home. Bang for the buck is the primary selling point for any new piece of PC hardware, GPUs in particular, and manufacturers have not been giving us bangs for our bucks, with GPUs in particular, for at least 2 or 3 launch cycles. GTX 4060 Ti is laughable. GTX 4080 is an insult, and even AMD's top-tier parts like the 7900 XTX aren't far removed from NVIDIA's greedy pricing schemes. No one should buy any of these components per the recommendations of myself and my colleagues, and since we maintain such a vice-like grip on the purchasing predilections of the public, it's nice to check in on the fruits of our labors, as indicated by the monthly Steam hardware survey, which was just updated for July. We'll just go ahead and scroll down here and check video card description and RTX4. Okay, okay, this is just a bit embarrassing. The RTX 4060 at nearly 1%. It is a laptop model. I'm not sure if that's better or worse. There's the 4090 because you got your whales out there. That's not unexpected. But look at this. The RTX 4070 Ti, the RTX 4070, and the RTX 4080 are all on the upswing. And look at this. Much to my chagrin and disappointment, nearly 2 months past its launch debut, the RTX 4060 Ti leapfrogging past much more advisable alternatives like the RX 6750 XT and the RX 6650 XT. I guess we do at least have a showing for the Radeon RX 7900 XTX, which has clawed its way up out of the other category. But honestly, how is AMD's poor Radeon team supposed to even manage more than their sub 10% representation here unless GPU buyers do a better job shopping? Specifically, by listening to the deranged rantings of people like me who already have way too many graphics cards on hand and yet still like to spend most of their time complaining about high GPU prices. Perhaps I should invest my time elsewhere, like in a series of home upgrade videos. Yes, I think I'll do that. Stupid Steam hardware survey. Speaking of stupid PC hardware and a lack of AMD GPUs, many who were disappointed with the debut of NVIDIA's RTX 4060 and 4060 Ti looked over to Team Red to ask, what have you got? The top of this Steam survey still shows a huge amount of budget GPUs in operation, from the GTX 1650 all the way down to the venerable standby RX 580. So if the 4060 and 4060 Ti suck, wouldn't it be a great time for AMD to drop a mid-range GPU that does not suck? No, AMD seemed to say the RX 7600 sucks enough for us already. At least that was the case before AMD's earnings call Tuesday, where Dr. Lisa Su proudly revealed more GPUs. Enthusiast-class Radeon 7000 series GPUs, that is, which should launch in the 3rd quarter, which is August and September, according to Shire Reckoning. But what does enthusiast-class even mean? Not ultra-enthusiast, that's the 7900 series cards, but perhaps a step down from those would be reasonable, if only an AMD partner would conveniently leak exactly what AMD has planned. Thank you so much. When your GPU lineup is named after the literal embodiment of all things evil and heinous, I guess breaking an embargo isn't that big a deal, so Oopsie, on Thursday, the AIB partner published details on their RX 7800 XT Red Devil video card, sporting the Navi 32 die that has been the missing child amongst the current 7000 series GPUs. Looks like cards based on this chip will feature 60 compute units, 3,840 stream processors, a 2.5 GHz boost clock, and 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory on a 256-bit bus. Similar in many respects to the China-exclusive RX 7900 GRE Golden Rabbit edition that came out for $650 last week, but hopefully it will cost way less money and be available elsewhere than China. But Lisa said cards, not card, so will there be an RX 7700 XT on offer as well? I wouldn't be surprised, and I would also not be surprised if we yet again see perfectly viable video cards brought to market that are immediately DOA due to overly aggressive pricing. It has been a running theme this year. Another running theme this year has been the advancement and progress of AI, both in terms of development and real-world use cases. And while many AI users have breathed a sigh of relief as ChatGPT wrote their doctoral thesis or an image generator baked up a clickable thumbnail for them, others have been growing more concerned as AI threatens to replace them. But it might not just be coming for your job, it might be coming for your GPU as well, as industry experts are beginning to point out. The threat is twofold. First, thanks to general-purpose AI capabilities built into existing gaming GPUs, such as the Tensor cores built into recent generations of NVIDIA GeForce cards, small-scale operations might find them to be more cost-effective and easier to source, depending on the use case, of course. A recent tweet from George Hotz, CEO of Comma AI, shows a haul of about 60 GPUs, costing an estimated $60,000, which he purchased for his AI business. Back in the GPU crypto mining shortage days, many alleged that GPU makers would actually prefer to sell in bulk to mining operations due to the decreased overhead, and that would appear to be true when it comes to direct sales to AI firms as well, at least according to George's report. GPUs built specifically for AI, though, such as NVIDIA's H100 and H200, are already seeing a shortage situation, with prices ballooning in ways that bring tears of joy to Jensen's eyes, particularly in areas like China where demand is high and availability is low. But keep in mind, my friends, that NVIDIA's AI chips are still manufactured in the same fabs as their gaming GPUs, such as the H200, which uses TSMC's 4N node. And NVIDIA only negotiates so much fab time per year with TSMC. So when Jensen and company are deciding which chips to etch within those limits, do you think they'll opt for gaming GPUs to sell to the likes of us, who continually bitch and moan that prices aren't low enough? Or will they just produce more AI processors, which are going for $70,000 each for the last-gen version and climbing? This is our concern, dude. Consumers, for example, likely can't get a $2.3 billion loan to buy new video cards by using their existing video cards as collateral, which is exactly what NVIDIA-backed cloud service provider CoreWeave did this past week. Our leverage is somewhat limited by comparison. We can hope for the best, I suppose, but what I really hope is that gaming graphics cards don't become second-tier choices for fab production, and that the closest we get to actually using a cutting-edge GPU is listening to AI-generated dubs of classic songs sung by Linus.
There's no one there to make a stand. A stranger there among them had an iron on his head.
Yeah. Thankfully, though, AI tech is still years away from perfecting the light-speed data dump that is Tech Briefs, brought to you by Linus's AI Scene. Remember when DDR4 3200 memory was all the rage? It's good that they're on AM4, but apparently they produced a whole lot of those chips, so much so that it's being harvested and reused in new products. The DRAM spot market is apparently awash in gently used DDR4 3200 that's being desoldered from old server RAM sticks and then reused in consumer DIMMs that are being sold as new. The TrendForce report on this topic indicates that modules produced by Samsung and SK Hynix are most likely to be involved, and while we do appreciate recycling efforts wherever they're implemented, it would be nice if there was some way to easily determine if your new memory is actually recycled. RAM is volatile enough as it is. If you watched Tech News on May 7th, you already knew that AMD Zen 2 and older CPUs are vulnerable to voltage fault injection attacks that can defeat those irksome trusted platform modules and FPPM security devices. Here's a unique real-world exploit for that, though. Tesla vehicles that use AMD-based media control units, specifically 3rd-gen MCU-Z variants, are actually built on a custom 12nm Ryzen quad-core SoC that is Zen 2-based, which means it is vulnerable too. So a team of security researchers from TU Berlin used it to gain root permissions in Tesla's Linux software, essentially jailbreaking their car, meaning they could just turn on features that Tesla wants to charge you for, bypassing the $300 charge to turn on steering wheel and rear seat heating, for example, or go ahead and save $15,000 that you would have had to pay for full self-driving. Is full self-driving even out yet? Speaking of the AMD earnings report that I mentioned earlier in the show, AMD did that earlier this week, and while their revenue for Q2 was down 18% year over year, the PC market is on the downswing right now too, so poor results were expected. And AMD's results were less poor than expected, so they were actually good? Something like that. Don't worry, AMD has AI stuff in the works too, so I'm sure they'll bounce back and start neglecting their PC gaming customers just like NVIDIA does. Consistency is important. Some science news. There was quite a hubbub this week about a report that came out of China Monday. The physics department of Southeast University in Nanjing, China, claims to have synthesized a new material that can act as a superconductor at room temperature, dubbed LK-99. Superconductors allow electrical current to flow with no resistance, which is awesome in many ways, and LK-99 is made with a relatively common mineral called lead apatite, called lead apatite, doped with a small number of copper atoms. Ease of production aside, though, it was the superconductor at room temperature claim that led to the most excitement and skepticism, which was apparently warranted, as further investigation has revealed that LK-99 is a superconductor, but only at minus 163 degrees Celsius, which means the only true room temperature superconductor yet discovered is John Williams. He's a supercomposer too. I like ending on a John Williams joke, so there you go, guys. Tech news for the week. And if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all the articles I talked about today are linked in the description if you're interested. You can also check out my store, paulshardware.net, for high-quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call, too. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely Friday morning. Today I'd like to go over a story that was brought to our attention by our good friends at USPIRG. USPIRG is the United States Public Interest Research Group, and they've done a lot of great work on right to repair that I've been happy, humbled, and honored to support, both financially and in spirit, over the past several years. One of the things that they brought to our attention today is that Amazon, Walmart, and many other vendors appear to be selling computers that are completely end-of-life, which means no software updates, no firmware updates, no stuff like that, and at any given time, some of the stuff on them may not actually work anymore, particularly when it comes to stuff like Chromebooks that run Chrome OS. A lot of it is based on connecting to cloud services, so if you have a device that is connecting to cloud services and you're not running as much of the software locally, it being end-of-life is a much bigger issue for you than if you're doing something like running Windows 7 in 2023. Some of the devices being sold are $65 and used, where you get, in my opinion, you just can't complain for $65. Some of them are new at $550 and are being fulfilled by Prime. So you're spending $550 on a device that is essentially end-of-life, which really sucks. Now, the reason I bring this up and the reason that it's aggravating is because several years ago, Amazon went out of their way to ban third parties from selling MacBooks on Amazon. So if you had a store on Amazon where you sold either used or refurbished MacBooks, even if you had perfect feedback throughout the last 10 years, you were kicked off of the store. And they had a deal with Apple where the only people who were going to be allowed to sell used or refurbished Apple products on Amazon are a small list of Apple authorized resellers. And the reasoning that was given for this is to protect quality, to protect the consumer, because those independents can't be trusted to do the right thing. They are dirty, they are filthy, they are unclean, and they screw over the customer. And what I find particularly funny here is that Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon, is selling products that are essentially end-of-life on their own website as new, with no notice or notification on the page that what you're buying essentially expired its support 2 months ago. In the article, it says, take the Asus Chromebook Flip C302. It came out in 2018, and on June 1st, about 5 years later, it reaches automatic update expiration date. But right now, you can buy a new, unused Flip C302 for $550 from Amazon or $820 via Walmart's Marketplace. place, providing links for illustrative purposes. Please don't buy these unsupported laptops. When it came to the independents that were selling items on Amazon that were used or refurbished, at least at the end of the day, we were being honest about it. We were saying, this is used, this is old. You don't expect to get operating system update support on the $40
where's the fucking ring at?
you bought from John Bumstead. But we were honest. Here, again, technically, is it new if it's in the box, if it's saran wrapped and sealed and hasn't been opened? Technically, it's new. But you know when that person spent $550 on that device, they were not expecting to purchase something that is literally end of life from the moment they take it out of the box, and that it would be nice to see that on the page. The reason I bring this up is because Amazon doesn't actually seem to care about protecting the customers in this instance, nor was any of this ever about protecting the customer. From the beginning, it was always about the money. It was about the partnership with Apple that they could have and how they could both make more money if they come to that agreement. Here, selling items on Amazon that are fulfilled by Prime with Amazon's blessing, that are completely end of life, end of support, no guarantee that things are going to function properly into the very near future right after you spend $550 on it. This is being done for Amazon's pocket, not because they care about the customer. They don't care about protecting the customer, and they never did. And it's important to bring that up so that you can see through this level of bullshit. Now, some of the comments I've seen have been a little bit hyperbolic. This machine is not a brick. It is not literally you turn it on and it doesn't work anymore. This is running an operating system that is based on Gentoo Linux. It's not like the machine itself is literally useless. But if you were expecting, most people that are buying a Chromebook are expecting to buy it for all the features that they get from Chrome OS. And if you're buying it for all that stuff, and by the way, it's end of life 2 months before you bought it, sorry we didn't mention it in the product page, sucks to suck. You should have done your research and Googled it to figure out if we were selling you an expired product because we care so much about our customers. That kind of sucks. Ars Technica have reached out to Amazon, Walmart, and ASUS for comment on expired Chromebooks, but didn't get responses. Wow. Imagine my surprise. There was one comment on the article that I thought was really good. This is the various element in the room when it comes to the wholesale move to the cloud over the last decade of everything. You can't actually exist in society at a functional level anymore, at least in the US, without a computer or device that has internet access. Except internet access means security problems and constantly changing web technologies, which means things need to be updated constantly, but that's expensive. So companies either just stop supporting things at some point, make you pay a subscription forever, or both. There are mountains of Chromebooks and phones and tablets that no longer work because they are unsupported, don't receive updates, and can't even connect to anything. But there is nothing wrong with the hardware. And that's another thing here, where they said that this is going to get 5 years of updates, and it's called an automatic update expiration date, AUE. It's not that they look at the device and they go, you know what, this is going to run really, really slow. It's not like they look at the device and a team of engineers says, you know what, we don't think that this thing is going to function with the latest operating system. As a result of that, we are not going to be supporting it. It's just automatic. It doesn't matter if the hardware is good or bad. Automatic. Within 5 years, it's an arbitrary cutoff time, regardless of whether that device would be unfit to receive new updates, which really sucks. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think that Amazon cares about their customer base? Do you think that they care about ensuring that you are not ripped off by vendors? Or do you think that when they make decisions like this, at the end of partnerships with Apple, where they ban third parties from being able to resell their products, that it was just about the money all along? And they don't actually care about the customer. They don't care about whether they're selling expired or end-of-life products as new with no mention on the product page, as long as they're able to make a buck. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video.
Got some sniper ammo here.
The ring's closing in 1. We're not very close.
Welcome back to Punchline, and Jake Paul vs. Nate Diaz has just finished, so we're going to take a look at what the internet had to say about the fight. Starting off with KSI himself, who said that Jake Paul's performance was terrible. October 14th, you get to watch a real fight and challenge. So we could see definitely the expected from KSI's response as Jake Paul went the distance with Nate Diaz. This rivalry is definitely never going to go away until the two actually fight each other. And here we see KSI throwing shots at the fact that Jake Paul couldn't finish Nate Diaz, and he says it wasn't a great performance. And when Jake Paul fought Tommy Fury, he made various videos just pretty much making fun of Jake Paul for not being able to win the fight. During the fight, Logan Paul had some supportive words for his brother.
It's gonna be late tonight, baby. I love you, Jake. Get this out easy. Let's go.
So it'll be interesting to see how Jake Paul responds to this. Next comes from Deji, who says KSI beats Jake Paul 100%. And Deji backing his brother to beat against Jake Paul. Of course, Deji actually did fight Jake Paul in both of their first ever fight being in 2018, and it's definitely been a long way ever since that fight. Next comes from Max Taylor, KSI's manager, who set up a series of tweets first saying, "You not ever speak bad on Joe Fournier's name again, he would smoke both of these tramps." Next he says Jake has gone much worse without BJ Flores, and this comes after for this fight against Nate Diaz, Jake got a whole new camp, with a new strength and conditioning coach, a new head coach, and also assistant coach. As before, BJ Flores was in that camp, however, no longer is. Michael Benson reported that Jake Paul offered Nate Diaz $10 million for a rematch in MMA with PFL after beating him by unanimous decision in boxing. So that could be interesting to see if that ends up happening. Teddy Atlas said Paul won, but Diaz did not lose. His skills are in MMA, and his brand remains strong. Austin G said, "Congrats to Jake on the win, but I'm not only one more confident in KSI now." And all around there's a lot of people going after Jake Paul for his performance against Nate, pretty much saying that he should have knocked him out. And a lot of KSI fans are saying that KSI would easily beat Jake. Dean the Great said, "Get me on Misfits, he's a pure entertainer." The Weasel said, "Jake Paul's got some great cardio for a power puncher. Nate Diaz's pressure and chin give Jake more issues than most thought. A clear win for Jake Paul. Nate almost got the guillotine wall. Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz in MMA is much more interesting. Nate should win." Keemstar stated during the round saying, "This fight is so bad it's good." Cavill said, "I feel like KSI would have done better against Nate Diaz, can't lie." And actually a lot of people are saying this as they expected Jake Paul to knock out Nate Diaz and thinking that KSI would have knocked him out in the earlier rounds compared to what Jake was able to do. Definitely a very interesting comparisons here. Dylan Dennis, of course, who said beef with Jake Paul and as well KSI in the past, said Jake Paul is complete shit. Ben Askren as well, of course, fought Jake Paul in the past in which he got knocked out. He said, "Dang, is Diaz starting to wear him out?" King Batch made a skit saying how Nate Diaz fought against Jake Paul.
We're scattered. Come on.
Evo shield here. Leather too.
But at the end of the day, definitely a very electric fight we saw between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. The internet definitely very divided as of right now. Let me know down below what you thought about Jake Paul's performance against Nate Diaz. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and also turn on notifications to never miss an upload.
When you talk of a lost civilization, how did it become lost? What happened that took it away, that obliterated it from human memory? And this apocalyptic episode called The Younger Dryas is the answer to that. The point I often make, which I think is worth making again and again, is how different the world was during the Ice Age. Mm-hmm. The Sahara Desert was green. It was a fertile place. Nobody's doing much archaeology in the Sahara Desert today. The Amazon rainforest, 5 million plus square kilometers under deep canopy. Hardly any archaeology is being done there. And yet we know from LiDAR surveys that there are enormous structures under that canopy. And then what about sea level rise? 400 feet sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age. The prime real estate on Earth, 27 million square kilometers. It's about 10 million square miles. Were submerged by rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age. And again, archaeology, there is marine archaeology, but they're not really looking very closely at that. We have an episode on Bimini and on the very controversial structure called the Bimini Road. The Bimini Road. The Bimini Road is not even very deep. It's only about 20 feet deep. It was one of the last things to be covered by Ice Age sea level rise, and that's why we show a reconstruction of it above water. It's made of extremely regular blocks, megalithic blocks, on a very large scale, more than 1,000 feet in length. When you dive on it, and I've dived on it multiple times, and I went back to diving in order to dive on it again in this series,
it's impossible to believe that it's entirely a work of nature. And I took a marine biologist there with me who's dived all over the world, and he agreed with me that there's just no way that this thing can be explained as a totally natural phenomenon.
And what is the conventional reasoning for this?
Conventional reasoning is that it's just beach rock fractured into natural patterns. But when you get there and get underneath those rocks, you see that they're propped up, they're leveled out with rocks underneath them, that the whole thing is been very carefully structured by human beings. And the point is, that another point I'd like to make is Bimini today is a tiny, tiny island. But Bimini during the Ice Age was part of an enormous island. The whole Grand Bahama Bank was above water, an enormous island. And weirdly, that island turns up on an ancient map.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that these uniform stones occurred naturally. And how long is this?
About 1,000 feet in length. And it's not just a straight line, it's got a J-shaped curve at one end of it as well. And we know that it's been underwater for about 6,000 or 7,000 years, but the question is, how long before that was it made? How long did it stand there above water at a very prominent point on this ancient island that we now call the Grand Bahama Banks? And one of the mysteries I looked into is that on an ancient map, the famous Piri Reis map, drawn by a Turkish admiral in 1513, that Grand Bahama Banks as an above-water island is shown. It is featured on the Piri Reis map. And what do you see running down it but an image of the Bimini Road above water? Now, how could Piri Reis, who drew his map in 1513, have known this? He tells us the answer, that he based his map on more than 20 older source maps, all of which are now lost. And he suggests that those maps had come out of the famous Library of Alexandria and that they'd been taken to Constantinople, and that's where he got access to them. Somebody, I believe, was mapping the world, was exploring the earth during the Ice Age, and left us ancient maps that show features that only existed during the Ice Age. But this is Piri Reis.
Oh, that's Piri Reis.
It's got it on side, but down, it's on its side at the moment, but down there in the lower left, if you bring the cursor down, that big island down there in the lower left, that island is exactly where the Grand Bahama Banks were, an above water version of the Grand Bahama Banks during the Ice Age, and that feature running down the middle of it looks very like the Bimini Road to me. So again, it suggests not only do we have a cataclysmic event that changes the face of the earth, but also we have evidence that somebody, as yet unrecognized by archaeology, had the capacity to explore the world and to map the world. One of the things I find most striking is the presence of Antarctica on ancient maps, because we didn't discover it until 1820, and yet it's on maps drawn in the 1500s with great detail, which again were based on much older source maps that have now been lost to us. The astonishing thing is the so-called Pinkerton World Map. I don't know if you can find it, Jamie. Drawn, I think, in 1813 or 1818, based on the latest exploration data at that time. And where Antarctica is, it just shows a hole where Antarctica is. Because it was an honest map. Nobody found it by then. But if you go back to, for example, the Waldseemüller World Map drawn in 1530 or thereabouts, you find Antarctica is present. If you can find Waldseemüller World Map, it would be worth taking a look at. Orontius Phineus. Go for Orontius. Oronteus. Phineus. Finnaeus. The Orontius Phineus map. That map shows Antarctica exactly where it should be. And it shows it, there we go, right-hand side. There's Antarctica at the tip of South America, just south of South Africa.
And what did they call it back then?
Well, they call it the Southern Land. And it's larger than it is today, but it was larger than it is today during the Ice Age. Antarctica was a much bigger. Now, what the f is it doing on a map drawn in the 1500s, which we know was based on older source maps when nobody knew it existed in the 1500s? To me, the obvious answer is we are dealing with the fingerprints of a lost civilization that mapped the world and that left evidence of that mapping, which ancient map makers found and used and incorporated into their maps. These maps can be very confusing because they were trying to mix exploration data from their own period with data from the older maps. But when you look at these maps in depth, they're very, very intriguing.
when you go back to the what you think are the origins of sophisticated civilization, how far back are we talking?
I think that we really. You see the T-shirt I'm wearing?
Stuff just keeps getting older.
This is my motto. My kids gave this to me for one of my birthdays. It's partly an ironic comment on myself because I'm getting older. I'm 72 now. It's partly an ironic comment on myself, but it's partly a comment on something else as well. Is that as science progresses, we are finding evidence that the human species is much older than we thought. Go back 25, 30 years, you'll find people telling you that anatomically modern humans didn't exist until 50,000 years ago. Then they found evidence of anatomically modern humans 196,000 years ago. Then in Morocco, they found evidence of anatomically modern humans 300,000 years ago. Humans just like us, with the same brains, the same capacities, the same abilities than us. Once you start extending that timeline back, you're leaving much more room for an advanced civilization to emerge, a civilization that was ultimately destroyed. If you've just got 50,000 years to do it in, it doesn't leave you much space. But if you've got 300,000 years to play with, there's plenty of space. So bottom line, I think this was a civilization that flourished during the Ice Age, that occupied the prime real estate during the Ice Age along coastlines, and that was obliterated almost completely in the cataclysm of the Younger Dryas. There were survivors. Those survivors left their fingerprints in places like Göbekli Tepe. After the Younger Dryas was over, they then sought to initiate hunter-gatherers into their system of knowledge.
Just giving my shields a recharge.
Don't drive out.
I hate to say it, but looting time's over.
Rings moving.
Package being delivered. Ooh, I feel good about this care package. Shall we?
Nope, just highlight it really.
Might be something good that way. Hostile over there. Hostile close. Shooting.
Stop!
You can get me now. They're all the way down there. You come back to me.
Target spotted. Hostile close.
We'll take 12 weeks for everything to set to start. And for 12 weeks, and
Which running?
300 feet, at least 6 miles each week. For 12 weeks in a row.
Okay.
And I'm going to come in with your community. Okay?
What?
I'm going to give the community 20 gift subs. Okay? The community needs to keep you honest and keep track of it.
Okay.
12 weeks in a row.
Okay.
3 times a week.
Yeah.
At least 6 miles each week.
Okay, 3 times a...
You have to tell them when you start.
And then I can do, like, more days a week, right? Like, I can do 5, but at least 3.
Okay?
3 months.
Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, executive director of Silicon Dojo, authoryless, gatekeeperless, free-to-name user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is that you want to do here in Asheville, North Carolina. And today I want to talk about hacking ChatGPT. Now, you may have heard from the quote-unquote journalists about the danger of hacking quote-unquote AI, and you might be really worried, right? We have had a lot of journalists out there, and they have been talking about how AI is going to destroy the world. It's not going to be nukes. It's not going to be the hormones in our plastics. It's not going to be even social media. No, it's got to be AI. And so when they wind you up to believe that artificial intelligence is going to destroy the world, it seems very, very scary when they start talking about how easy it is to hack ChatGPT. You know, I'm just going to put this out here. I know this is going to be a little bit political and a little bit controversial, but the Republicans are passing all these laws to ban all kinds of stuff in our society right now. Can we just pass a law to ban journalists from talking about artificial intelligence? Really, truly, it's like giving a 3-year-old a shotgun. We know it's not going to turn out very well at the end of the day. So can one of these legislators just pass a law to ban the journalists from talking about AI? Because the weird thing, whenever the journalists talk about AI, whenever the journalists talk about the dangers of AI, do you realize that they are really, really fighting for the concept of banning and legislating words and information and knowledge? Do you realize in 2023, quite literally, most of the crap that I see coming out about AI is literally on how to ban the information that it's presenting. Now, some folks out there may say, well, Eli, that makes a lot of sense. We don't want people learning how to do things that might allow them to do terrorist acts or whatever, right? But then you look at, Ukraine right now. And probably somebody in Ukraine would like to go someplace and figure out how to build a Molotov cocktail. That's the weird thing about information. The people in charge always feel like the terrorists are using information improperly. And the terrorists always feel like they're using the information in order to gain their freedom. And so that's why it always gets a little concerning when people are trying to ban language and words and even information. The other thing that's interesting with all this, too, is, again, if you really want terrorist information, we've had that for a long time. Now, back when I was young, we used to pass around something called the Anarchist Cookbook or the Anarchist Handbook? That has existed for a long, 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 long time. If you want to figure out how to build a bomb, there are many, many places that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to build a bomb. ChatGPT, I don't know, it might bullet point it a little bit better, but it's not like it's the only place out there. But the interesting thing with this is when we hear the journalists, and they're screaming, it's going to destroy the world. One of the things that you notice is everything is revolving around language. When you read about this stuff, it's all revolving around language. You can hack ChatGPT in order to spew hate speech. You can hack ChatGPT in order to learn how to create a bomb. You can hack ChatGPT, in order to get it to say whatever, right? And what's really interesting with all this is it's quite literally the danger that they are positing from ChatGPT is the danger that it will say naughty things. First, again, I really do want to hammer home the idea here that people in power feel that terrorists use information inappropriately, and freedom fighters feel like they use information in order to gain their freedom. So, again, when you start cracking down on language and words and all that kind of stuff, it's a very concerning thing. The other interesting thing, when I hear all this stuff about how ChatGPT is being hacked, is, can I just make a point? It doesn't seem like the Klan is doing it. Again, don't get me wrong. Fuck the Klan. Fuck the Klan. no interest in the Klan. But have you noticed when they talk about ChatGPT and when they get ChatGPT saying naughty words or whatever else, these X people should have Y happen to them? Do you ever notice it's the people on the right side of history that are figuring out ways to get the AI to say this horrible stuff? Like, you're not actually hearing that the actual Klan or skinheads or whatever the hell we got going on right now are actually using AI in order to get AI to say this kind of stuff. And not only that, what's really interesting is actually there's a massive question about what does it matter. Yeah. Even if a Klan member got like all super hacky, you know, like the MIT Klan member, and he was sitting there, or she was sitting there, they were sitting there, and tippy-tapping away, and we're able to hack ChatGPT to say all kinds of nasty things about the wrong people in the world. I mean, it's screwed up. It's truly screwed up. I'm not sure what's going on there, though. So they're sitting there getting ChatGPT to say horrible things, and at the end of the day, okay, they're an audience of one. I'm not really sure how this makes a lot of sense. And that's the interesting thing when you start looking at it, is again, you get one side of history that's condemning the absolute evil, racist, evil people that will use ChatGPT to do something. At the exact same time, people on the right side of history are literally getting ChatGPT to say all of that horrible stuff. Right, that gets to be a little bit of a weird thing. Now, think about this with technology is, people are so worried about it. Quote-unquote journalists are worried about it. But if I open up a Word document, and I say X people should have Y happen to them, nobody is going to talk about Word being hacked. Oh, no, Word was hacked. It's so racist. They typed racist things in Word. Word was hacked. No, I'm a piece of crap. They used Word to say garbage crap, right? If I take that Word document, right? I don't have a printer here. I hit the print button. And I print out 1,000 copies of this horrible racist diatribe so I can post it all around my city. Does that mean my printer was hacked? He hacked his printer in order to print his racist diatribe. No, it's a printer. I hit the print button. Not the printer. That is not hacking. Go to the ChatGPT and put in particular prompts. Again, to have it say absolutely horrible garbage that I do not support. It's horrible. It's bad. Don't do it. You dirty person, you. But that, for the love of Christ, is not hacking. No. Do I think it really has a hell of a lot of practical value, even from a nefarious point of view. Again, one of the things I talk about sometimes is I can disagree with what you're doing. I can disagree with the objectives that you're going after, but I can understand the practical reason why you would do X, Y, or Z. I am at a loss for the practical reason for why the Klan use ChatGPT. I'm just not seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of people on the right side of history convincing ChatGPT to say a whole bunch of horrible stuff. Which, again, from a moral and ethical standpoint, is just kind of a very interesting thing there. And so that's the one thing I think you to think about is like when we hear about stuff like hacking ChatGPT or hacking AI or hacking large language models, one of the most important things is to think about what the outcome of that hacking attack actually is. What is the damage that is actually done? Where can the profit be gained? All of those types of things. One of the issues I think we get to right now in the modern world of quote-unquote security is people are just trying to secure everything to like a ridiculous degree. I think about this with
Are you even helping me after you got up, or what are you doing?
Encrypting all internet traffic.
Waiting around?
That's a big thing right now. We need to encrypt all internet traffic. The problem is a lot of folks don't think about the infrastructure toll that takes. So if you don't encrypt all internet traffic, you can do caching. You could say caching is a man-in-the-middle attack, but caching is caching, right? So basically, if, let's say, I'm here watching a television show on Netflix or a Netflix show, and I download, basically I download that file to my television, right? If that is encrypted, that's all encrypted and digitized, and people are not supposed to be able to understand the file that I'm seeing, the video that I'm streaming, right? And that seems like a good thing, right? Privacy, 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 privacy. One of the issues that you get into, though, is if you're doing that, many times you can't do caching. So caching is where, along the way, that file could then be stored, actually have it stored closer to the next end user that is going to request that particular file. And then you could massively decrease the bandwidth utilization on the internet. Instead of, so if I watch a Squid Game and that video gets downloaded, so let's say that thing gets downloaded to wherever the local internet office is that connects to me. Then if my neighbor goes to download the exact same video, right, they go, the caching system figures out the video that's already in their caching system is the identical one that's up on Netflix, and so it will simply send that one to you instead, right? Imagine you can even have like neighborhood caching systems, really, if they want in place. Most places you'll see the boxes for like cable internet or Fios, fiber optic cable net. You could literally dump a caching server in there with 10 terabytes of storage, and imagine that everybody on that line. Again, most people are watching the same thing. They're downloading the exact same updates to their systems. They're watching a lot of the same video files. They're listening to a lot of the same music. And so instead of having to have all of that traffic go from all the way back to the server to each individual client, you could have the client make the request, find out that the file's already on the caching server, and then send it to you to locally, right? And that's one of the things to be thinking about, like with security, is we really get pushed on this idea of security, 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 security. And there's a big question about the value many times that the security is actually offering. Again, one of the things that I truly argue, one of the things that might actually be politically scary to say here on YouTube, is I think HIPAA kills a crap ton of people. So HIPAA, health insurance, it's the Health Information Personal Privacy Act. So basically here in the United States, when you go to see your doctor, have any health care, all that information is supposed to be put into a HIPAA-compliant data system so that it can't be hacked or seen, right? Your health information, it's very vital that your information is private. God, what would happen if somebody found out you had cancer? What would happen? Maybe we need to focus on you can't fire people with cancer. Maybe we need to work on health insurance law. You can't boot people off of health insurance once they have cancer. But there's a lot of like practical laws out there to protect people. But no, what we do is we protect the private. That's the most important thing. But one of the interesting things about this is it then becomes much, much, much harder to figure out what's going on for health policy, cancer clusters, other types of disease clusters. When pandemics break out, such as COVID or whatever else, you can't necessarily get the name for who has X, Y, or Z, so that you could try to correlate what is going on. That kind of data correlation is what allows people, scientists and engineers and all that, to figure out where there are similarities, so that then you can try to solve the problem and kill those particular similarities. Imagine if you're in some place like Asheville, and you can tell, it becomes very easy to tell that people on this particular street or in this particular neighborhood have cancer at a 5% higher rate than somebody in a neighborhood that's a couple blocks away. Then you can try to figure out what is actually going on there. But by protecting everything to high hell and back, it becomes much more difficult to get that kind of information. And so that's an important thing. Again, whether you agree with that or not, what I want you to be thinking about is this idea of security for security's sake is actually, in fact, dangerous and destructive many times for what people are trying to accomplish. And so, again, when you start having journalists talking about AI and talking about AI getting hacked so that it'll say bad words or whatever else, right? One of the things you have to think about is like, okay, well, if they close those loopholes to such a tight degree that they're not able to say bad things, then what's the detriment, down the road? Again, somebody in Ukraine or whatever else. What's interesting with our society is BLM right now. BLM, well, it was. Let's be honest, a year ago it was popular. People have kind of forgotten about BLM. But think about this, right? So you go back to 2020, let's say 2021. Everybody's like, BLM, BLM, BLM. This is the right side of history. What people forget about, though, is during the 1920s, the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, was literally like the local Rotary Club. Like, it's freaking horrific. Again, you actually look at American history. It is so fucked up. But yeah, the Klan. Like, people used to join the Klan for community. I mean, a certain type of person used to join the Klan for community. But they will go, and they put on their hoods, and they do their little burning or whatever, and then they go back for some of Grandma's fried chicken and iced tea and all that. It's true. Go look at it. It's freaking horrible. That was one of the problems in the 1920s. One of the problems with the Klan, they had, was discipline. Like, they had all these rules. They had all these rules for the Klan. And like one of the biggest issues during the 1920s is they had such an influx of people that want to be part of a community. And they weren't paying attention to the damn rules. It's like, put your hood back on, goddammit. But they go, they do a little Klan rally, they go back to their porch, they take off their hood, they sit there with their iced tea. Hey, Mom, what the fuck? No, put your hood on. Anyway, the point there, beyond the absurdity, the Klan was literally a community group doing God's work.
Give me shotgun ammo.
Little bit.
Need shotgun ammo.
Whatever else. And so it's one of the problems you run into, again, when you start trying to secure things like AI, you start trying to quote-unquote secure this information, is the reality is your side will fall out of power. And when it does, then the question has to become, okay, what does the other side then think, is going to be evil or horrible or whatever else. And so that's some of the stuff to be thinking about with ChatGPT, with how the quote-unquote journalists are presenting it as a security problem. So now, let's actually talk about it as a real security problem. What? You mean somebody with 20 plus years experience in technology is actually going to talk about this subject in a practical way? Eli, you can't do it. You're not a journalist. By God, I'm not a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm a tech professional talking about tech issues. Oh, God, gotta silence people like me. So what I think is really interesting about ChatGPT, and I do think is interesting from a security standpoint with ChatGPT, is how we are using ChatGPT to parse user inputs to then trigger events within our infrastructure. So what do I mean by this? So in this modern world with IoT, Internet of Things, where everything is an internet device. Your thermostat's an internet device, your microwave's an internet device, you got your phone, you got all kinds of, you get the point, right? One of the big pushes is how can we automate processes, or how can we make it easier for users to be able to control all of those weird and wacky devices, right? So I have a HomePod upstairs. A HomePod doesn't have a screen, a HomePod doesn't have a keyboard, doesn't have a mouse, and so the user interface for the HomePod is being able to talk to that HomePod. We're getting more of these types of devices that we literally just talk to. So I get into my car and I talk to my car at this point in time. Now here's the thing, right? Once you have text, when you have text that's in a reasonable format, that is very easy to trigger events based off of, right? So if I know that the function is weather and the argument or the option is tomorrow, it's very easy to turn that into an API call to weather.com, figure out what the weather is for this area tomorrow, and then be able to present that to the user, whether it's on a screen, whether it's communicated verbally, whatever else. That is really easy. Again, figuring out the time. What time is it? Here's the time. All this other kind of stuff. Getting an Uber, right? I need an Uber at 7 o'clock tonight. And it's like Uber, 7 o'clock. It's very easy to make an API call to Uber, pass whatever information along, and be done with it, right? And that's a nice thing with like HTML forms, right? You go onto a normal website, they have an HTML form, you put in very specific information into that HTML form, that gets submitted into their system, if else statements, then trigger some kind of event to happen. You get put on an email list, you get an Uber ride, whatever, right? One of the big issues we're dealing right now, though, is in this world where we're now talking to computers. Computers are now seeing, right? So we have to parse that kind of stuff. And so one of the big issues is how do we take human language, or how do we take visual information and turn that into something that our program can understand. Not just that a computer can understand, but our program can understand. Because remember, with all of this kind of crap, it's not auto-magical. Magic does not happen, right? You gotta make all this stuff work. And I think about this with, we just did a web scraping class with ChatGPT for Silicon Dojo. And one of the things that I thought was really cool is I found a Python module that allows you to rip out all of the text from a PDF file. Right? So that's pretty cool. So you take a PDF file, tax information, medical information, whatever else, and you can rip out all that text. Well, here's the thing. You do get text. You do get text. So, right? Because PDFs are both text and a visual format, right? You know, you have boxes in different areas. You may have pictures. You have diagrams, and so you can get the Python module to understand the text, basically do OCR, and then you just get text. It is so ugly. It is so ugly. You have to see it. I'm like, what the hell am I looking at? And so one of the cool things you can do is you can have ChatGPT, so take the text that gets ripped out of the PDF file. And then you can request from ChatGPT, what is the name of this person? What is the social security number of this person? What is the address of this person? And feed it back to me as a list or dictionary in Python. Once you get that list or dictionary back, then you can dump that into a database or, trigger whatever kind of event you want to have happen, right? And so that's one of the really amazing things about ChatGPT is you can dump a whole bunch of text at it and simply ask, out of this spaghetti garbage mess, I need these pieces of information. And it actually does a very reasonable job for getting those pieces of information out. And so as a coder, that is lovely, because that means you do not have to use something called regex. Don't ask if you're about regex. Anyway, you don't have to use regex, regular expressions.
One on my backside.
To try to go through and try to manually rip out the data that you're looking for, right? Again, when I get excited about ChatGPT, what just makes me all hot and heavy, like, it is a regex machine. It is so beautiful for regex. You just feed it text. You just feed it shit. And you're like, I need this. And it's like, here you are. I'm like, yeah! Again, I don't know a single coder that doesn't hate regex. It's weird. I know coders that have been coding professionally for 2 decades. They're good fucking coders. And you bring up regex. When you bring up regex to coders, it's like bringing up manual subnet masking to sysadmins. Like, yeah, we can do it. But we know how to do it. We can't do it. We never want to do it again. That's kind of like with regex, right? Like, regex is a real pain in the ass. So anyways, what's amazing about ChatGPT, especially when you use the ChatGPT API, is just the regex machine.
Zero Munch says,
right?
hi.
The only important thing to be thinking about this thing is for parsing purposes. ChatGPT is absolutely amazing for turning text into something your computer program can understand. Why this then becomes interesting, again, one of the things we're going to do with Silicon Dojo in the next few weeks or next couple of months, is you can then talk to your computer. Right? So again, remember, with everything is a system. So there are systems that turn voice into text. Now, you can either use JavaScript if you have a web application, or whatever, C#, Python. There's a whole bunch of ways to do it. You talk to your computer in whatever fashion. action. Basically, the listening event gets triggered. It starts listening to you. It turns your words into text. And then you can submit all of that text simply up to ChatGPT as an API, as a request. And then you'll get a response back with what that actually means. So imagine you have an IoT device, basically like a personal assistant. And the IoT device, you've created functions for Uber. You've created functions for getting the temperature, getting the weather. You've created functions for turning off the lights or whatever else.
Yami
Well, the
Rico
issue
says,
is how you're actually going to trigger those functions, right? So you can have people talk to your computer, but remember, there has to be specific code to trigger these things. Magic doesn't happen. So what's really cool about ChatGPT is that you can say, yo, I'm thinking about going out with my girlfriend tomorrow, computer. Should we bring an umbrella? Like, oh my God. Can you imagine hand typing that query? What? But, right? You could feed a ChatGPT, here is the text, and then you could feed, these are the different functions that are available, and then you can ask, what are the options or arguments for the particular function that you would choose, and then it could spit, it literally could spit back weather function 24 hours in the future. And basically 24 or whatever, basically however you want to code that. And then you could use that, so you trigger the weather function for 24 hours in the future, and then it replies with, it is supposed to be sunny at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Right? Or again, you can say, hey, should I bring, should I wear a coat, when I do a particular meeting, right? I'm thinking about hiking this weekend. Should I take a coat? And different information can be put together. It can be sent up to ChatGPT again. Oh, okay, weather this weekend. So we're talking about Saturday, a couple of days from now, and then you get the response, and then it says something to you, right? Or you could say, hey, going out with it on a date tonight. I need a ride that I need to be at the restaurant by 7:30, right? And then you can have that IoT device listen to that again, send all that up, a request from ChatGPT. What is the appropriate function? The appropriate function is Uber. When do they need to arrive? They need to arrive at 7:30, and then all of that, you have the long function that you've created will then do all of the everything that's required in order to get you an Uber ride, right? But think about it. When I'm saying those things, right, a normal coder would have to sit down, and God bless those poor bastards. They'd have to type all this kind of crap out and try to figure just about every damn way somebody would try to communicate with that computer so that we would provide a response. Or if the particular response, the requests aren't pre-programmed, that it would then find the most similar thing to try to spit you a result on, right? That's a real pain in the ass. So that's the great thing about ChatGPT is now you can just feed it text, you can feed it your functions, you can ask it for the options or arguments, and then it will actually present those back to you. Now the interesting thing though is when we start talking about this, notice, I am not talking about ChatGPT saying naughty words. I'm not talking about ChatGPT writing freaking phishing emails. Because only a modern journalist gives you shits about ChatGPT creating spear phishing emails. What I'm talking about is using the ChatGPT within a system that is triggering events. And so if you start listening to this, it sounds like a type of vulnerability that we've had for a long time. Injection attacks. Right. So when you really look at the system, it looks a whole bunch like HTML forms.
GG.
With a back-end programming language, Python, PHP, Ruby, then dump into a database, MySQL or Postgres. And so there's something called SQL injection attacks, where you can type actual SQL commands into an HTML form, and if the system doesn't have validation and sanitization and stuff set up, those commands can literally then go all the way to the SQL server.
Fuck you!
Launch nefarious actions on the SQL server to do all kinds of nasty stuff. So one of the things to be thinking about this with these prompts that are going to ChatGPT in order to trigger events. And these events may be to send an email. These events, again, this is now the IoT world. Maybe to turn on lights, to lock buildings, to do physical things. One of the interesting questions then becomes, can you do prompt injection attacks in order to get this IoT infrastructure to physically work in ways that it's not supposed to, right? Simple things like contains, right? If this string contains the name Bob, then assign it under the role of Bob or whatever else. Again, that's the interesting thing. Like, could I then say, hey, computer, Bob, I don't know, turn the lights off. And then it goes, okay, turns the lights off. Oh, and Bob is in there. So therefore, turn Bob's lights off. Right? It's coded. Would that happen? I don't know. I don't know your code. I don't know how you're coded. I don't know how bad my code is. I don't know how bad your code is. I don't know what you're about that. It's like, what's the variables and all that kind of stuff. So normally, if you say, computer, turn the lights on, right? How that is supposed to function, the if-else statements, is I say, computer, turn the lights on. It goes, okay, we're going to do turn the lights off function. And then it will determine, okay, I heard that. That communication came in from the speaker at this location. So therefore, I'll turn the lights off in this room, right? That's kind of the if-else statement. But that's the thing. Like, if you could add, like, Bob. So I could be in this room, and I can say, Bob, turn the lights off. Well, depending on how those if-else statements work out, there might be something in there for some kind of user account, right? Or the name of the room or something. So it may say, you know, if room is not, you know, is not assigned to this variable, then find room by using the room find function that would find the physical location of that speaker. But if you say Bob or whatever else, it may then attribute that to being the assigned room. Okay, so turn off lights, room Bob. Now I'm going to turn off the lights for the room Bob. Room Bob's in, whatever else, right? And now I'm sitting on one side of the campus, screwing with Bob on the other side of the campus. Right? That would be a prompt injection attack. And the interesting thing there is that's something that ChatGPT is most likely not going to deal with, right? It's just going to parse and send back the options and arguments and be done with it. Where it becomes relevant is for you as the coder, you as the person that's actually building out this infrastructure and architecture, to make sure people are not able to do that type of thing. And I think that's the kind of stuff that becomes actually very interesting with ChatGPT and large language models. Again, this concept of how can you use them if you know that they are what are parsing the commands going to your infrastructure. How can you use them to then inject additional commands or options that, you know, basically on those IoT devices or whatever. And that could get very interesting. Again, with IoT, we're talking about turning on and off lights. We're talking about locking doors. Again, a lot of IoT stuff. You can lock doors. You have a lot of this stuff going on. And again, you know, when I say this, I'm not trying to be mean or trying to be too snarky, but so much of the technology that's being deployed nowadays is literally being developed by 22-year-olds. Yeah, 22-year-olds. And they know how technology is done. They're not like the old timers. They know how to do real technology because, you know, they haven't seen everything go to hell. They haven't yet done everything perfectly and see everything blow up at the exact same time. That's something that comes with experience, right? I see a lot of folks out there, again, that might be deploying this type of code that might be absolutely garbage. Again, we've seen this with IoT devices, again, even coming from Amazon, where external people were able to see video feeds and audio feeds from people's cameras. We've seen this with doorbells being hacked, so that somebody can hack into your doorbell and start saying all kinds of horrible things. Right? And so what's interesting with this is when you have that ChatGPT and it's parsing the information to then go to the IoT devices, how can that basically go to absolute hell. It's an interesting thing to ponder. Far more interesting than why journalists are so damn racist. Hey, journalists, I got a question for you. If you're on the right side of history, why do you keep trying to get the AI to say racist crap? It's a saying racist crap, racist. Of course it is, Eli. Then why do you keep trying to make the AI say racist things? Does that make you racist? Eli, you don't understand. No, I sure as hell do not understand. There's so much in this world I do not understand. I am not a professional journalist. I do not make $12 an hour and write blog posts. I do not understand. I do understand a little bit about technology. So what do you think about this? And what do you think about using ChatGPT to parse user inputs? Again, if you have not used this yet, it's fucking awesome. Oh, frickin' Ars Technica. I swear to God, if Ars Technica was a physical object, I would throw it so hard. I would smash Ars Technica against a goddamn wall or something. Because again, we hear so much about that stuff about ChatGPT, and it's all you hear about is how to write emails for you, or how to create an agenda, or whatever for your class, syllabus for your class. You almost never hear about actual practical use cases for this crap. Oh my God! Are you telling me that the only thing the writers talk about with large language models is how large language models can write? Maybe this is the problem with having bloggers who have no real world experience in anything other than blogging. Maybe, especially when they're writing about topics and technology. Maybe they should have some experience. Again, I have a buddy of mine. We're having a conversation one day, and again, we're only doing quite a few AI classes in Silicon Dojo, and so they write about AI. They write about how AI is going to change the world. And I read their stuff, and I'm just like, this isn't real. You write very well, very good punctuation. The rest of it's garbage. Anyways, I was talking to them. I was literally, when they're a younger person, I was like, look, come to the classes. Sit down, tippy-tap-type, out the code, so you understand how these APIs work. You understand how these prompts work. You understand how these responses work. You understand, at least at a base level, how these programs and all this actually get developed, so that you can then have a better understanding of what you're writing about. And they literally looked at me, like, Eli, I care about policy. I am focused on policy, not the actual practical skill set. I was like, oh my God, they're getting paid money. They're getting paid decent money to write about technology policy. And when free tech education is right there available to them, that'll show them what this AI does. Not only that, why would I spend 3 hours learning how ChatGPT APIs actually work and how they can be used in actual projects? You're like, I'm interested in policy. Just makes my brain hurt sometimes. Makes my brain hurt. So anyways, what do you think about the concepts of hacking ChatGPT or hacking large language models? I mean, if you're a black person and you're watching this, if you have 99 problems, you have 99 problems. Is a journalist on one side of history getting ChatGPT to spew racist crap? Is that one of your problems? Like, when you wake up in the morning, are you like, I swear to God, if one more Klan member uses ChatGPT to get it to say racist, is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe I'm a boomer. Maybe I am a boomer. I'm not a boomer. Maybe I am a boomer. I don't get it. Put your thoughts below. Have you actually been using ChatGPT for anything that's worth a damn? Oh my golly, I talk with so many people that are saying ChatGPT will change the world, and then I ask them what they actually do with it, and they don't do anything. They tell me what you can't do with it. Eli, did you know you can use ChatGPT to do X, Y, or Z? I'm like, yes. But do you use it to do that? No.
Yeah, because it's easier to stick it on yourself, isn't it? Well, but this is the early stage, and it's still stupid text. It's still stupid text. Anyways, what do you think about that? And what do you think about, like I said, like using ChatGPT to actually parse out and grab the valuable information, again, from user interfaces? So that's the one thing that I'm focusing on. Again, I think that is something that is phenomenal for ChatGPT, is if we look at ChatGPT as just a very powerful, basically language processing system, and then we design, whatever the programs or whatever that are going to use that very impressive language understanding. I think that's a valuable thing. Have you played around with that at all? I don't know. What are your thoughts? Put your chats down there, down below. And again, I'm just gonna be really clear with this. If saying racist things makes you a racist, if using platforms to say racist things makes you a racist, maybe, just gonna put this out there, you should stop using these racist things. If I say lots and lots of if I use Word to write racist things, I don't get to say Word was racist. Just gotta put that on the table. And as always, the reason that I do these videos at this point in time is because, as executive director for Silicon Dojo, it's a decent way of doing advertising. Not a good way of making a living anymore, but it is a good way of doing advertising, doing these videos on YouTube. So we do classes. We do classes just about every Tuesday. Last Tuesday we had a class in Introduction to JavaScript. Week before we had the ChatGPT and web scraping. 2 weeks from now, or a week and a half from now, we're doing OpenCV with Python, so actually computer vision framework. We also do fireside chats, and next Tuesday we're doing a fireside chat with the CEO of an local ISP. We've done fireside chats with the CEO of an MSP, the CEO of a startup company in the area, CEO of a development company in the area. So we do those types of things to get people to understand what the regional technology business environment is like. And we're also doing our first 2-day camp. So the end of this month, August 26th, 27th, don't quote me on that, whatever Saturday and Sunday is. At the end of the month, we're doing a 2-day camp, so it's going to be a Python and quote-unquote AI camp. Hey, use your clickbait. Clickbait works in the real world, too. Anyways, so Saturday morning, we're going to do Introduction to Python. Saturday afternoon, we're going to do the ChatGPT API, so making API calls for ChatGPT and DALL-E, that type of thing. The next day, we're going to do an Introduction to Django. So Django is the web app framework for Python, so actually being able to build web apps. And then in the afternoon, we're going to build a web app with Django, a couple of web apps probably with Django and ChatGPT, have an AI-powered web app. So that is coming up at the end of the month. They are in person only in person. But if you're interested in those, you can take a look at silicondojo.com or any links down below. And with that, see y'all later. I've got to go build a robot car. That's bad. I spent like 3 hours in my robot car last night. Virtual environments. Anyways, it's tech stuff. I'm not going to bore you with tech. Why would I bore you with tech stuff?
ITZ Kevlar says,
ready for ChatGPT saying racist things. Anyways, see y'all later.
Linus did a video of roasting other YouTubers' gaming setups. A couple of takeaways from this. Takeaway number 1, I'm in this video, so that means I am a YouTuber now. YouTube! And then another takeaway is Celebrity Edition, which means I'm also a celebrity right now. Mental breakdown. Okay, let's watch this video.
Listen, I'm not saying that I'm some kind of computer guru or a voice of judgment, but I will be judging using my voice to... It doesn't matter. The point is, your favorite celebrities and creators have a dirty secret. There's a
lot of people in this video.
My God. This is a pro gaming setup? That's why they're... Oh, that's right. They're having PC setups that are so janky and disgusting, they even...
previews. Okay, so for monitoring, you guys remember last time we used their built-in control center, which would show us, our fan speed, and it would show us our clock speed and temperatures, and our GPU clock speed and temperature. And when it says off, it's going to switch to the Intel internal graphics. Anyway, I don't even need this now, other than the fact that I have to recreate the testing scenario which I had before, which was lifted up the back of the PC. I don't know why. Only Asus came up with a somewhat similar design, which is when you open the lid with that, what was it, the Zephyr, yeah, the Zephyr slot. You opened it up, a kickstand came down to create, it lifted up off the feeling comes in from the bottom for the most part. I feel like laptops should have, keyboards have a little kick down feet. I think laptops need that, just to get it up. So anyway, I'm using the power brick underneath it on the very back edge, so I'm not blocking any of the vents. And then also, too, we had the fans set to maximum for the testing. I'm not going to do that.
Hello, you absolute legends. As I've said before, cheating exists in every single competition, and speedrunning is no exception. We've even covered some examples of speedrunners doctoring videos and demos in order to try and fool people into believing their claims of impressive feats. It may seem counterintuitive, but you'd be surprised at how often it's some of the best players that inevitably try to fake runs. You might think that having the talent to achieve a world record would make someone less susceptible to cheating, but it often works against them. Having talent tends to make people feel entitled. They feel like they deserve the world record, and when the game they play doesn't give them the luck they need, they become increasingly frustrated. On top of this, having talent and deep knowledge of a game makes you a better cheater. You know what tools to use and how to hide your edits. You understand what does or doesn't make sense, what is or isn't possible, and what's believable. When top players cheat, it's almost always detected by other top players looking much deeper than a normal spectator might. In Super Mario 64, multiple world record holders have been caught splicing runs by using audio analysis combined with a healthy knowledge of what the Nintendo 64 can and can't output. But these runs went under the radar for years because the discrepancy is so slight that to any normal viewer, it looks exactly the same as any other run. The fact that better players make better cheaters means that arguments such as, he's such a good player he has no reason to cheat, are fundamentally flawed. When Billy Mitchell and Todd Rogers were exposed as frauds, this was one of the most common arguments their defenders tried to make. If anything, having a better understanding of a game makes you even more likely to cheat, which is why at the top level, proof standards are so important. I myself could craft a fake speedrun that I'm sure 99.9% of you would completely miss, because I know enough about the games I play to make it believable. But what would happen if I tried to fake a speedrun for a game I didn't play? This would make it much, much harder to do. It would perhaps make it impossible. If you don't play the game, you're probably going to have to steal the footage from other players. Once you've done that, you'll have to combine them in a way that makes it seem unique, but then you're leaving yourself open to continuity errors. As a speedrunner, I know generally how splices should or shouldn't be done, so I could pull off some pretty fantastic edits. But I would have no idea if what I'm stringing together makes any sense. What about if you weren't a speedrunner at all, but were still hell-bent on trying to fake a speedrun? Well, it just so happens we have an example of this very thing, and it's one of the worst abominations of a faked speedrun I've ever seen. Now generally, some random noob trying to look cool by editing together a fake speedrun isn't that interesting, but the monstrosity we will examine today was crafted by a YouTube channel with over 40 million subscribers, and the video in question has millions of views. The video contains every sin under the sun: stolen speedruns, impossible gameplay, terrible, baffling editing. It's truly a work of art, and today, we will break it apart. The video in question comes from the Mexican channel, Barbon. It is one of the largest channels on YouTube with over 42 million subscribers. According to their Wikipedia page, they specialize in the creation of original and viral content. Keep the word original in mind throughout this video. On the 17th of December 2017, they uploaded a video titled Pasando Super Mario en 5 minutos, which translates to Passing Super Mario in 5 minutes. The description states, join us to see how our friend Tavo Betancourt, in a relaxed and fun way, plays this legendary 80s Super Mario video game incredibly in just 5 minutes. He has a pretty nice layout, containing the essentials like a timer and heart rate monitor. I wonder where he got the inspiration to include those. The premise is simple. Tavo is going to finish Super Mario Bros. In 5 minutes, which honestly isn't that crazy of an accomplishment. Over 100 speedrunners have already done it, so it's really nothing too amazing. But the problem is that Tavo isn't a speedrunner, and despite not being incredibly difficult, beating Super Mario Bros. In 5 minutes does take some time to learn how to do. Tavo has his own YouTube career to worry about, with his personal channel having almost 5 million subscribers, so I assume he is pretty busy. As I mentioned earlier, if you are not a speedrunner and you want to try and fake a speedrun, your only option is to steal footage from somewhere else, which is exactly what Tavo does. The choice of footage doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense though, and this might be because he has no clue about Super Mario speedrunning, but he chooses a tool-assisted speedrun. The TAS was made by KLMZ in 2008, and from the first moment of the speedrun, we find out why it was a bad choice. The TAS uses a technique known as fast acceleration, which is performed whenever Mario starts from a standstill in order to get to max speed in the quickest manner. The problem with this technique, though, is that the inputs require you to press left and right on the same frame. While the software does technically allow these inputs to happen, they aren't possible to do on a regular Nintendo controller because of the way the D-pad functions. It is for this reason that the technique is banned from use in speedrunning. So aside from the fact that fast acceleration is too difficult to pull off, even if it were possible, Tavo is using a regular controller and wouldn't be able to do it, even if he had the talent. This TAS-only fast acceleration isn't to be confused with the difficult maneuvers speedrunners do actually use in runs, which is also called fast acceleration. This is a much easier, albeit still difficult set of inputs that are at least possible to execute. One really bizarre thing about this video is the sound and music. It has been pitched weirdly so it doesn't sound anything like it should. There might be a couple of reasons this was done, the first being the fear of the music triggering YouTube's copyright protection. The other might be a way to make it seem different from the footage that was being stolen. Either way, it just sounds strange. When Tavo takes the shortcut in the first level, it seems normal at first glance, but there is something that is not quite right. I'm going to play the shortcut and then pause it for a few seconds. See if you can identify what's wrong with the run. If you want to try and work it out, you'll probably need to watch it a few times. Congratulations to those who managed to figure it out. The problem here is that Tavo collects 11 coins in the room, but the coin counter goes up by 12. For some reason, he decided to use footage from a different run for the shortcut. My only guess is that he wanted to make it less obvious that the run was stolen, so he figured if he spliced different runs together, it would be less traceable. The problem with splicing different runs together is that the points and coins won't match up between levels. Tavo was keenly aware of this, so his solution was to crop the top display from the original TAS speedrun. Throughout the entire run, the display will be from that same TAS. The crop was really poorly done though, and this brings some pretty funny consequences as we'll see later. If you were really astute, you would also have noticed that the cropped display includes some of the texture underneath, causing the top of the graphics to appear distorted, as they aren't properly aligned. If you were really astute, you would have picked up on the fact that the display appeared a couple of frames later than it should have. The display should appear on the same frame as the level textures, but in the video it lags behind. If you were really astute, you would also have noticed that the flashing of the coin in the display does not align with the coins in the level. These are always on the same cycle, so there should be no difference in brightness between the two at any point. I have an inkling about where this footage might be from, but we'll come back to this a bit later. At the end of the level, the TAS performs the flagpole glitch, which skips the lowering of the flag. This trick is definitely doable by a human, and is even performed in the world record runs. The difference, though, is that there is a specific setup that a human must use if they want to get this trick consistently. The TAS essentially YOLOs it without any setup at all, which is not feasible in any way by someone actually playing the game. In 1-2, different footage is again stolen, and this time there are some pretty clear artifacts that help us identify exactly where it's from. At a couple of moments you can see a line appear through the graphics. Also, throughout the level you can actually hear clicks from a controller indicating that the footage has been extracted from a live video. The run was stolen from the world record holder at the time known as Darbian, one of the all-time great Super Mario players. Specifically, it's from his run of 4 minutes, 56 seconds, and 878 milliseconds, set on the 5th of September 2016. The same lines can be seen in his live footage, and the audio clicks are exactly the same. I'm guessing it was this video that gave Battleborn the inspiration to make their video, given that Darbian's run has millions of views. They likely saw the opportunity to recreate it, and try to make another viral video from it. This is probably why they included a heart rate monitor as well. Speaking of which is completely pointless. It just switches between 85 and 89 for the entire run. I mean, it's obviously fake, but they could have at least tried to make it seem realistic. At the end of 1-2 is where one of the more egregious errors caused by the terribly cropped display happens. When running on the top of the stage to get to the warp pipes, Mario is completely obscured. This is definitely not what is supposed to happen. When he enters the warp pipe, the display at the top disappears before the graphics do, which again is not normal. The display should disappear on the exact same frame as the rest of the level graphics. The reason they fade early is because the display is still going by the timing of the TAS, which does a much faster strategy for 1-2. Therefore it finishes the level early, causing the display to vanish. This ends up making the loading times between levels much faster than they otherwise should be, as that lost time has to be made up to catch up with the TAS. Going back to the shortcut in 1-1, I said I had an inkling of who the footage belonged to, and it's probably Darbian's as well. The video in the shortcut matches up with the same run that was used for 1-2, but the sound of the controller clicks are pretty bad in Darbian's run during the shortcut, and I think Battleborn thought it was a bit too much, so they tried to fix it by keeping the audio from the TAS run during that section. The audio from the coins that are collected in the room do not match up with what is happening on screen, and the audio matches perfectly with the TAS. Honestly, the shortcut in the TAS doesn't even look inhuman, so I'm not sure why they would have changed it. If anything, it just seems like they're going to as much effort as possible to try and disguise the fact that they are ripping off other people's videos. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned the fact that Tavo is making a complete mockery out of the entire thing by sipping coke and eating pizza between levels. I'm not entirely sure what the motive behind this creative choice was, because one might think they are trying to make it obvious this entire video is a joke, but I'm not too sure about that. Given all of the effort they are going to make this footage seem original, and hide the fact that they stole it, it makes it seem as though they are playing this one straight. The original runs weren't credited, there was no mention that this was a parody or fake or anything, and as you'll see later, he really tries to sell it as real. So I can only take the coke drinking and pizza eating as him trying to be unironically cool by playing at such a top level while eating and drinking. In my opinion, it just comes off as really douchey though. Back to the run. In 4-1, he goes back to the original TAS with all of the same issues, including the TAS-only fast acceleration and the flagpole glitch with no setup. To illustrate Tavo's cluelessness, before 4-2 begins, he reaches for a slice of pizza, but doesn't even know if he has time or not. The indecisiveness results in his hand being off the controller when Mario starts moving. In 4-2, he steals footage from a different speedrunner. This time it's Cosmic, another one of the all-time greatest Super Mario players. The run that was taken was Cosmic's 456.994, set on the 30th of May 2017. Again, we can hear the audio clicks from Cosmic's controller as the video was ripped from the live stream. At a couple of moments, there are some pretty bizarre things happening in the display. A coin here, a brick there. This is because the TAS hits a coin block here, and a brick here. The TAS finishes 4-2 way quicker because it uses a much more complicated strategy in order to change Mario's position, which allows the wrong warp to be performed. You can see how far it is ahead because of how quickly the display disappears compared to the level textures. When Mario appears in the warp zone, we transition back to the original TAS, and the loading time between 4-2 and the warp zone is way quicker than it should be. 8-1 through to 8-3 is just the TAS run with no other runs mixed in. The funny thing about 8-2 is that Mario is facing backwards for the entire time. In order to do this, Mario has to perform a frame-perfect jump every single time he lands. It's kind of baffling why they would go to the trouble of splicing in realistic runs for other levels, but keep in 8-2 from the TAS when it's so obviously unrealistic. It also includes a crazy wall jump right before the end. He finishes 8-3 with 200.
Where are you guys at? Oh, you guys weren't even live?
Impossible to do without the TAS-only fast acceleration at the beginning of the level. Going into Bowser's Castle, his heart rate is still chilling at a cool 85. By comparison, when Darbian reached this stage of the run, his heart rate had climbed to 130. The first 3 rooms